Gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. So both of you are senators and you represent the St. Louis area. You've both filed very powerful bills to kind of curb this vast overabuse of abuse by St. Louis County or neighboring counties in our state in an effort to kind of restore accountability and oversight. It's something that's really missing right now, and it's had a huge negative impact on our businesses, on our churches, and on individual liberties. I'd like to start with you, Senator Onder. Can you tell us a little bit about the situation and the legislation you filed this year?
Sure, Frank. No, it's great to be on. Great to join the YRs again. Well, we all know the background of this bill. You know, the COVID pandemic has been devastating in many ways, but we've really, unfortunately, added insult to injury by our response to the pandemic. The COVID vaccine has been the COVID virus has been the most politicized disease. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say in human history. It was used, for instance, as an excuse by judges and politicians in many states to undermine election integrity laws in key swing states. Now, we could debate another day whether the magnitude of the stealing of votes was enough to make Joe Biden rather than Donald Trump president. And I guess to even ask that question, I'm an insurrectionist these days. But one thing is for sure that the long-standing election integrity laws were just ignored in the name of COVID. But what's really hit people closest to home have been the public health orders that have disrupted our lives and our communities in a whole bunch of ways. By shutting down businesses, by shutting down social events, by shutting down sports, by shutting down schools, keeping us from visiting relatives in the hospital or nursing home. We have really disrupted our social life, our economy in many, many ways, leading to just incredible loss of jobs and interfering with our ability to worship at church or synagogue. Reduced educational attainment, record high incidence of substance abuse, depression, suicide. Many have asked, is the cure worse than the disease? And in some jurisdictions in our state, and of course in our metro area, we feel this especially acutely. We have just had these incredibly aggressive and hypocritical local public health authorities, so-called, who've taken out on a handful of industries and a handful of activities their desire for power and their desire to shut things down in the name of combating this virus. So again, we're all in the St. Louis metro area, so we're very aware of County Executive Sam Page, who shut down our restaurants in St. Louis County, but then one evening wanted to go to a restaurant, so he crossed the Missouri River into my county, St. Charles County, to have dinner at a restaurant. He shut down kids' sports. Except for the one his son participated in, cross country. In Springfield, the city council went into Walmart and decided that what items they could sell and not sell. One of the items you couldn't sell in Springfield at that time was you couldn't buy was camping gear. You wouldn't want to go outside and get fresh air during a pandemic. That would be a bad idea. Of course, churches were shut down. Many counties in the state even shut down drive-through church services. So the irrationality of, again, the left likes to talk about following science, but the irrationality of these shutdowns and the lack of science is just astounding. I mean, I think when the left says science, what they mean is woke ideology. So what are we going to do about this? Well, the Missouri Restaurant Association was fighting Sam Page's lockdown orders, went to court, said, in so many words, Page, Duche, the county health director, you don't have any authority under your ordinances and under Missouri law, under statute, to do what you're doing. And I've read all the pleadings in those cases, and I think they were dead on correct. The problem is the courts wouldn't do anything. So what Senator Koenig and I set out to do is formulate a bill that really did a whole bunch of things. One, in part, it did some very specific things, like said, you can't mess with churches. It did other things like you can't keep dad from going and visiting mom in the hospital after she has a baby. Someone who's in the hospital dying, you can't keep the clergy member who is going to attend to you in your final hours out of the hospital. You can't take a child out of the home just because the parent has COVID. But probably the most I won't say important. Obviously, religious worship is important, but the most timely, given Executive Page's orders, has been the part pertaining to the ability of public health officials to shut things down. And we put together a system where shutdowns would be limited to 15 days, after which it would need a 2/3 approval of the elected officials, the legislative body of that political subdivision, to keep the order in place. And it would only be renewable 3 more times, total of about 44 days, and then it ends. Then it just flat out ends. Now, the governor, under Chapter 44 of our statutes, still has emergency powers. So if the zombie apocalypse, or Senator Koenig will probably chuckle at this, one of our fellow senators seems very concerned about an outbreak of Ebola virus. In a case like that, the governor would have emergency powers to do various orders. But we really wanted to strictly limit the amount of time, and the renewal of the executive orders or rather the health orders would have to be approved by 2/3 of the legislative body. So in St. Louis County, I don't think there's any world in which Sam Page would get 2/3 vote for his dictatorial, draconian orders, shutting down restaurants, for instance, or shutting down sports. So we want to end one-man rule in St. Louis County. You have a similar situation in Columbia, where they're shutting down restaurants, although there the council is not very much help. But no matter what the council does, orders have to come to an end at a certain point. You just can't have these so-called running roughshod over the economy and over people's lives for indefinite periods of time.
And Senator Koenig, can you tell us a little bit about, since you've joined us, about kind of the motivation that you had for filing your initial bill? I know Senator Onder had his motivations. What kind of motivated you in the beginning?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I happen to represent St. Louis County, the only Republican wholly contained within St. Louis County. And I have seen just abuse after abuse. And oftentimes, no scientific backing for their actions, no legislative oversight. I believe in separation of powers. It should be the executive branch carrying out the law, but it should be the legislative branch that's creating law. And clearly what Sam Page has done is he's tried to use his authority to create laws that didn't exist. And although I believe our laws would state that he can't do that, I think we could add some clarity to our law to really make it crystal clear that he does not have this power. One thing that was not in my original bill that Senator Onder had in his is the 2/3 vote. I thought that was definitely a huge improvement. That was a good idea that Senator Onder had. And I'm glad that it's currently in the bill. That's as a real check and balance on Sam Page. And what we've seen kids' sports shut down. I mean, honestly, during this pandemic, there's probably no better place to be than exercising outside in the summertime. He has shut down parks, the coronavirus, and the heat tends to break down rather quickly. And there's not a lot of evidence that it spreads outside. That's the very place you would want to be. We've seen attacks on restaurants. They shut down the restaurant industry. And it was funny during our 4-hour debate. It's actually not funny. It's actually really sad. I had an inquiry with Senator Shoup on this very point. She wanted to play the victim card on how she had to come to the Senate to work. And I was like, you make a risk. Every person in the world has to make a risk assessment on what they do. She looked at the risk assessment and chose to come to the Capitol to work. Yet it's somehow okay for her to tell everyone else that they can't leave their house and operate their business. That is a complete elitist viewpoint. It's a double standard. How is it okay for her to do what she wants, but you can't do what you want? And, obviously there was further abuses from Sam Page. I mean, they shut down the restaurant industry unless you had a place that had known COVID cases. If the restaurants in every hospital in St. Louis County were wide open, you could go in there and eat. And obviously that's where COVID patients go, to the hospital. So that, once again, this is that was a situation where Sam Page works in a hospital and he thought it was okay for his restaurant to be open, but not okay for everyone else to have their restaurants open. Complete double standard. We had situations. I had a relative that ended up coming down with COVID. Their child came down with COVID and they were threatened with a misdemeanor if they had contact with each other, even though they lived in the same house and they both had COVID. Once again, this is something that is very unscientific. I want to hammer this point over and over again, because the left is always talking about the right, how they're against science. And in this situation, we've seen a complete abandonment of science on the left side. What they want is government control over your lives. They don't care about the science. For anybody that doesn't know this, if you have another human contact, you could get COVID. Just be on notice. Somehow, the left is attacking the right constantly. Somehow, if someone on the right gets COVID, it's their fault. They deserve it and they need to die. But somehow, if someone on the left gets it, then it's the people on the right because of their actions. But let it be known, if you leave your house and you have another human contact, there's a good chance you could get this virus. But the reality is, each person makes risk assessments for themselves. And in a free country, you should be able to make that choice. If you want to lock yourself in your house and not have another human contact, you won't get the virus. And so we're all about protecting people's rights. We have very strong protections for religious liberty. Clearly, what we've seen across this country, we've seen churches and synagogues and religious institutions targeted. And what I think the Constitution, it says Congress shall make no law for the free exercise of religion. And so even if they put restrictions on a business of 10 people or restrictions like that, that should not happen on a church. Unfortunately, I wish all of our Republican colleagues were with us, but unfortunately, we're fighting both the Democrats and a few on our side on that very point. One thing I saw, one question in the comments related to religious liberty. Yes, it is true that we have those strong protections in the beginning of the bill, and then they are also mentioned in another bill. That does not lessen the strong restrictions on government to regulate religious institutions that we have in the first part. They're not contradicting statutes. It's fine to have both of them in there. I think it's good to have as much protection as possible when it comes to religious institutions.
Yeah, and that's, I'm glad that you brought that up, Senator. And I think we're getting a little bit of, I think we were getting a little bit of background on there. Senator, do you have the Facebook page open?
No, I don't. I just have this comment stream on the right-hand side. Perfect.
We were getting a little interference sometimes if it'll play the audio. But I was gonna ask you, senators both. There has been some concerns that we've heard about this bill, and I would like for you to kind of provide a little bit of clarity to some of the folks tuned in. We got about 55 people right now watching. I'm assuming a lot of these folks are in St. Louis County. So you mentioned about churches, Senator Koenig. Could you kind of readdress that real quick for folks?
Yeah,
that might
sure.
just be
So we
tuning
have,
in?
yeah, I see another comment about 50%. Yeah, I believe we should be all the way open. It should be, in a free country, it should be your choice. And government shouldn't be doing that. We have one provision, which I believe adds a lot of protection to this very point, and that's related to tax policy. So we have a provision in the bill in both in my original bill, and it's also in Senator Onder's Senate Bill 12. Got rolled into that bill, and I'm very thankful for Senator Onder for putting that in there. And what it does is it says if a government entity shuts you down, it doesn't matter if they just shut you 10% down, then you will not have to pay real estate taxes to that government for that period of time that you're shut down. So if you're shut down for a month, you don't have to pay real estate taxes for that month. And this is critical. I think this is what gives it some really strong teeth. St. Louis County, if they realize they're going to lose millions of dollars, they're going to think twice before they shut the business down. That's the problem. People in government do not feel pain. They are going to get paid no matter what. And they have no problem coming in and shutting a business down and forcing people into bankruptcy. And what this does, this makes government feel the pain. And back to the religious piece, like I said, we have some strong protections in the beginning of the bill. But I think it's even added protection to even have that second part that may seem a little bit less restrictive. It doesn't cancel out the part that we have in the first part of the bill.
And Senator, what do you say, or Senator Onder, do you have a comment to make? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that the part of the bill, and this was in Senator Koenig's Senate Bill 21, 6 senators filed a total of 7 bills, basically all with the same goal of reining in the tyranny of these so-called public health experts. But the only one who had the property tax abatement was Senator Koenig. And I think that's, it really occurred to me that he was, when he put that piece in, he was speaking the only language that politicians and bureaucrats understand, which is money. I think they'll think twice, 3 times. I don't think they'll ever shut anything down again. Just that one provision alone. But and also I just wanted to, and some of our fellow senators, they really are afraid that somehow not being able to shut down. And again, we are talking about broad shutdowns of whole categories of businesses. We're not talking about, shutting down a restaurant where there's an actual public health problem, E. coli or salmonella or something. But I think I want everyone to understand lockdowns and shutdowns just flat out do not work. We've never in human history done this before. In 1918, during the swine flu pandemic, yes, for a time, large gatherings were shut down in some cities, including St. Louis. But never have we taken this approach of closing entire categories of businesses. We've never fought a pandemic in that way. And as it turns out, there's some really good evidence, especially out of some medical professors at Stanford, Dr. Bhattacharya, Dr. Ioannidis, looking at shutdown countries, which honestly is about 10 countries that they looked at, versus non-shutdowns, Sweden and South Korea. And they found no benefit of shutdowns. Or even if you look here in our region, a shutdown county versus a non-shutdown county. St. Charles County, where I live, really opened things back up in early May. So at this point, a long time ago. We have half of the COVID-19 death rate of St. Louis County, where we have Sam Page and his reign of terror. So I can't say often enough that if we really do, first of all, there is no such thing as the science. Again, when Sam Page or Alex Garza or Anthony Fauci talk about the science, what they mean is their own preconceived prejudices and ideology. Their own desire for power and to reign that power over us. When you look at the actual evidence, and science is always informed by evidence, and as time goes on, we have more and more evidence. What we see is first, we see that children have an almost zero risk of serious complications or death for COVID. We see that the elderly, especially those in nursing homes, are the ones most vulnerable. And we see incredible devastation to our economy, to our social life, to educational attainment on our children. So what does all this evidence tell us? Well, it tells us that we should be taking an approach of focused protection for those who are vulnerable, those in nursing homes, the elderly, those with serious pre-existing medical conditions, and that we should open up the rest of the economy. That is what in our lives, in our schools, that is what the science, the evidence is telling us right now. So again, a couple of our fellow senators, even Republicans, were, oh my gosh, what if we need to shut things down? Shutting things down is like saying, well, what if we really need to bleed the patient, or what if we really need to apply leeches? It's bad science, it's bad medicine, and it's not consistent with our constitutional Republican form of government, and therefore we just need to put a stop to it.
One of the things I kind of wanted to ask you both about was, again, just the negative impact this has had on our local economy, and as state senators on our state economy. Can you guys kind of give us an idea of how long will it take for us to, if we can even bounce back from this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think certainly we'll have businesses that bounce back, but we'll also have businesses that will never reopen. When a business may file bankruptcy, and they may look at the numbers and be like, it's just not worth it. I can't make the numbers work. And so we ultimately will have businesses that will never come back. And so that is very tragic. It's unnecessary. Another comment that I saw in the comment box was, congratulations to all you taxpayers in St. Louis County. You hired 4 lobbyists to try to stop us from passing this bill. I will say,
I was going to say, remind me, how much didn't they spend $150,000 St. Louis County on hiring 4 lobbyists? Is that true?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the dollar amount, but when I heard that come up, I texted some family members. I said, "Congratulations to you. You just spent your tax dollars hiring 4 lobbyists to stop me and Senator Onder from passing a bill to protect your rights."
Yeah, Frank, as far as the economic devastation, just to give you an idea, the Missouri Restaurant Association estimates that already 1 out of 3 restaurants in Missouri has failed because of this pandemic. Another one woman who testified in front of the committee, her family owns quite a bit of commercial real estate in St. Louis County. She testified that before the pandemic, their real estate was and mostly strip malls, the kind of places small mom and pop shops, restaurants, nail salons, workout studios are. Before the pandemic, they were about 90% occupied. Now their space is 9% occupied. So it's devastating. And as Senator Koenig pointed out, yes, the economy is going to bounce back, but there will be casualties. There will be businesses that never reopen, families who lose their life savings, people who have pursued their dream of owning their own business only to see it crushed. Yes, partially by the pandemic, but partially by the action of government with these misguided policies of shutdowns. People losing their jobs, people who went to culinary school to become a cook, and now they're without a job and nothing else, they're the skill that they worked so hard to acquire, they're not able to pursue that anymore. So I think there's very little question the cure has been, whether it's worse than the disease, the cure has been really, really, really bad.
And I'm looking right here. We have in our chat box, Councilman Harder, who is one of the councilmen for St. Louis County. He actually just said that almost 60 restaurants in just St. Louis County have closed since March. I mean, that is astounding. Almost 60 restaurants. And Senator, I don't know, Senator Koenig, how many in your district, if not struggling, have closed since March? I mean, dozens at least, I imagine.
I know there's lots of businesses hurting. Absolutely. You know, another example of where they don't always follow the science, and I actually mentioned this to Senator Shoup in debate, is she said every person that comes to my office is required to wear a mask. And I said, what about people that have the vaccine or already had COVID? They're not going to be spreading it. And she didn't really have a good answer for that. Once again, this is a situation where the left has abandoned science. Now, obviously, there's not a lot of evidence that people are using masks properly for them to work and to begin with. But certainly, if you've already had COVID and you've already had a vaccine, there's really no purpose in wearing a mask.
Yeah, and can I ask you both this? I know there's been some concern, and we've addressed it a little bit already, that the bill's somehow been watered down, SB 12. And just to clarify, everyone, SB 12 is the omnibus bill that has Senator Koenig's originally sponsored SB 21 and some others. Now, Senator Onder, can you speak to that this bill is somehow watered down?
Yeah, Frank. No. Farthest thing from it. Sam Page wouldn't be hiring 4 lobbyists to oppose us, and actually, a lot of there are probably another four or five lobbyists lobbying on behalf of various political subdivisions, county health boards, and then there are various medical groups like hospitals who are quietly lobbying against us too. So if we had a weak bill, there wouldn't be that much interest in this bill. No doubt we got Sam Page's attention. But I think those who were afraid the bill was somehow being watered down. There were, I have to say that some of the bills, even my own, mine had, as Senator Koenig had, mine had the 2/3 majority of the legislative body, the county council in St. Louis's case, needed to approve a public health order. But along the way, we've had various versions of the bill, some of which are more comprehensive, some of which are less. But the bill we debated last night, I think contains the strongest and I would say the most aggressive provisions. For instance, it had Senator Koenig's property tax abatement if you get your restaurant shut down. I didn't have that in my original bill. It has my 2/3 in it, a requirement of the council, which wasn't in Senator Koenig's original bill. Some of us had, I had the provision that you couldn't discriminate in churches compared to other businesses. As Justice Gorsuch said, you shouldn't be able to keep Caesar Palace open, but shut down Calvary Chapel. But then the bill that we debated last night went one step further and just said no restrictions on churches or religious worship at all. So, no, I think we have the very strongest bill that of any that have been filed that were filed, stronger than any of the individual bills filed. And I think we took the most aggressive, the most protective of liberty elements of each bill and put them together. Now, one thing I would like to mention, though, there are, if you go back and read the legal briefs in the Missouri Restaurant Association case against Sam Page and St. Louis County, they make a very good case that under the St. Louis County ordinances, Sam Page had no authority whatsoever to issue shutdown orders without the approval of the council. That's true. That's absolutely true. The county ordinances are clear as can be. And yet, the Restaurant Association went to court, and they lost at the trial court or the circuit court level, and then they appealed to the circuit court level, and they lost there. And they gave up the litigation because they didn't see that Missouri courts were going to give them a lot of relief. So if the courts had done the right thing, at least in St. Louis County, we may or may not need legislation. I would defer to Councilman Harder as to whether Sam Page could get the 50% that's required by the current ordinance. But no, there is no sense in which this bill is watered down. Couple of places and some comments I've heard from some grassroots folks have pointed Senator Koenig and me to places where we can clarify some things. But believe me, there's not a single thing that Senator Koenig and I have done with this bill that Sam Page is happy about.
Right. And I'd kind of like, this will kind of be, let's just kind of wrap things up, gentlemen. Senator Koenig, would you kind of like to just kind of give us your closing statements on kind of how you see this legislation moving forward? And then Senator Onder, I'll just kind of have you pivot from there.
Sure. Yeah. I agree with Senator Onder. We have a strong bill. I think a couple of the most important provisions is the tax provision, because it holds county government accountable. And then also the 2/3, and it has to go through a legislative body, and then we ultimately have the state legislature in there putting that check and balance where a senator like myself or Senator Onder could stand up and filibuster to make sure that people's rights are not being violated. I will say this is I believe we will get a bill done this year. I think with 6 senators filing bills, that kind of shows that there's 6 Republicans that feel that county government has overstepped their power. Ultimately, what you see, like people often say, well, St. Louis County should be able to do what they want because of local control. But when I believe in local controls, I believe local control is you as an individual. In a free society, government shouldn't be telling you that you can't leave your house or how many people you can have in your house or whether or not you can operate a business. Article 1, Section 2 of Missouri's Constitution says you have a right to the gains of your own industry, and this has been taken away from people. And so I do think there is a strong move in the legislature in both the House and the Senate to get something done. That being said, it will be a bumpy road. It's not going to be smooth sailing because we have many Democrats who are committed to trying to stop us, and we have some on the Republican side trying to water down our bill. So I do think we will get something done, but it is going to be a tough fight ahead.
And Senator Onder, what do you have to say about moving forward?
Well, that's right. One of the first things I ask anybody thinking about running for public office, I ask them the question, what do you think is the function of government? And the function of government is to preserve and protect individual human rights, individual liberty. And while there is a role for public health authorities to do things to keep diseases out of our communities, when governments interfere with our ability to worship, to pursue a livelihood, to be with our family, we need to push back and we need to change the law to make sure that that doesn't happen any longer. I think that the great majority of Republicans do appreciate that they do appreciate that these tyrants and their draconian public health orders need to be reined in. At the same time, as Senator Koenig said, it is a tough process because a lobbyist gets in their ear, someone from back home, a county health official gets in their ear as a friend of theirs. So it could be a rocky road, but yes, I think we are going to get something done, and but we're going to make sure that whatever it does does what we need it to do. I do not believe in passing bills just for symbolic reasons or to just say you did something. Politicians are really good at that. No, Senator Koenig and I are dedicated to protecting businesses, protecting churches, protecting people and their livelihoods, getting people back to school, and really most importantly, probably restoring the kind of balance and liberty safeguards that we expect in our constitutional republic. So we're not gonna rest until it's done.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time to come by, answer some questions, and kind of explain kind of some of the specifics and then some of the information around this bill. Can I ask you this before we kind of have you gentlemen log off? When do you think the bill will be taken up again, kind of on the floor of the Senate?
You know, I would my guess, and I haven't talked to the floor leader about this. Next week, provided our education chair Cindy O'Laughlin is back in town. She's been sick, not with COVID, but she's been ill. Provided she's back, I think the big bill of the week will be an education reform omnibus that Senator Koenig has contributed an education savings account bill to, that I've contributed a virtual school bill to, that our friend Senator Eigel has contributed a charter bill to. We might go to that. So I'm not sure that we will be going back to it next week, but I think we're going to be twisting arms to try to get plenty of floor time the following week. If for some reason, heaven forbid, Senator O'Laughlin isn't back next week, I don't know about Senator Koenig, but I'll be pushing to get time to get it done next week.
Yeah, the one thing I would say to that is we had 4 hours of debate on the bill already. It'll probably take closer to 16 or 20 hours to get it done. As the floor leader was walking out of the chamber around 5:30 when we were debating the bill, I went to him. I said, look, this is a priority for St. Louis County. We have to get something done. And he said, yes, I'm committed to making sure we get something done. So that is definitely good news. I'm going to make sure all 6 of us senators who filed bills on this puts pressure on the floor leader to give us as much time as necessary to pass a strong bill.
Great. Well, we look forward to kind of seeing the developments. Senators, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Please keep us updated on any other developments.
We will.
Thanks.